Mm. We're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's Career Path series with certified mindset and empowerment coach Jenn Masse, who also has an MBA. So she's been through a program too, so she can relate. We are very lucky to have her here. She is a coach full-time. She speaks professionally and does coaching professionally. So we are just very excited for her to share a presentation with us. And so just a note that we do have everyone on mute, but you are more than welcome to put any questions you might have in the chat. I think that Jen will be saying that as well. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. So once again, we are really happy to have you here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jen.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. And thank you, Molly, Kirsten, and Ernie for all having me. And thank you everyone for joining on a Friday afternoon. I'm sure you're all anxious to get your weekend started. So I promise to keep this as upbeat and interactive as possible. I'll hit it again, but as Molly said, please use the chat. Please do whatever you need to kind of stay engaged. This is being recorded, so I understand if you want to keep your camera off, but if you're comfortable showing your face on camera, I would love to talk to faces and not black screens. So keep your camera on if you're comfortable doing so. But yeah, so as Molly mentioned, my name is Jenn Masse. I'm a certified mindset and empowerment coach, and I'm really passionate about helping people break through limitations so that they can start achieving success on their terms. And often that starts with helping people identifying their self-sabotaging behaviors, which is what we are going to talk about today. And I realize that I am not sharing my screen. So let me go ahead and do that so you actually can see what I'm talking about. All right. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to keep this engaging. Sometimes I'll ask you to put stuff in the chat. Sometimes I'll ask you to do a show of hands. Right now, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you feels like this or feel like this when it comes to chasing your dreams? Just give me a show of hands if you want to raise it, if you want to do the little emoji thingy. I don't really Zoom technical terms, but yeah, I'm seeing a lot of hand raises. I'm seeing a lot of people nodding. Here's the thing. We are so often focused on saving ourselves from failure that we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to fly. That fear of failure and those behaviors that keep us safe are our biggest limitations. So if you want to fly, stick around, because here is what we're going to talk about tonight. First, we're going to cover why we sabotage our success. Then we're going to dive into the 9 saboteurs and a simple mindset trick that you can start tonight to stop them. And then lastly, we're going to talk about where you personally need to focus your time and energy moving forward. And before we dive in, just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be doing a couple exercises throughout the session, and you might want to take notes. So if you don't have a piece of paper in front of you or a OneNote document in front of you, go run away real quick, grab it, come back. I'll cover some more housekeeping while you step away, but make sure you have something that you can write on. Secondly, as I mentioned before, I love when these workshops are interactive, so feel free to use the chat box. I'll try to address your comments when I can. Don't get to your comment or your question immediately. Don't worry, I'll answer it. I also see that my internet connection is unstable, so I'm really hoping I can get through this without freezing on you all. But yeah, so we're just going to go through this. We're going to have fun. Clearly, I am super casual, and that is how we're going to run this workshop, because I just want people to be engaged and enjoy themselves. Lastly, I know that you're probably going to be really tempted to multitask. I get it. I know how busy you are. I know that it's a Friday night, but I encourage you to resist that temptation and stay focused for the next hour, because you are here to learn about how to stop sabotaging your success. And if you tune out, you're very likely engaging in the same habit that needs to change for you to stop sabotaging your success in all areas of your life. So now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, some hard truths out of the way, open up your chat window, which if you're somehow new to Zoom, it's in the bottom bar of your screen, click chat. Open up your chat window, and I'm going to ask you to type the first thing that comes to mind. I would love to know what interests you about this topic. Don't overthink it. Just, why did you sign up to join this afternoon? Leadership, break old habits, curiosity, overcome procrastination, use some coaching. Everybody can. I feel that to my core. Improvement to be successful, overcome fear, recognize success, blind spots. Yeah. Again, we all have those. Leadership skills. Molly threatened me. I love that. Way to manage up, Molly. Very good. Want to progress instead of staying in a bad cycle. We are going to talk about that. That's actually number one on the list, like why we sabotage our success. All right. So as those are coming in, I am going to build this content from the ground up for you. And it starts with my story. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second so you can see me in all of my glory. And when I think about my story, I could probably go back further, but I'm going to start with when I went to college and declared my major in accounting. I personally wanted marketing, but according to my dad, I could do anything I wanted with an accounting degree. And it was good at math, and it was really good at following rules. So accounting seemed like the fast path to success. Fast forward to my graduation and my corporate career, which started in, you guessed it, public accounting. And I was miserable. But I knew that success meant more money meant more parental approval, and of course, that elusive thing called happiness. So for over a decade, I kept chasing those promotions, the raises, and the careers that would bring me the success, happiness, and freedom that I desired. But they didn't. I was beyond burnt out, and I was emotionally drained. My breaking point was when I was sitting in my boss's office pitching a project, and I was so burnt out at that point in my career that I don't even think my boss finished saying no before I broke down into tears. Now, I have never been one to show my emotions, and unless I'm watching a Disney movie, crying does not come easy for me. But this was like a terrible mix of ugly, snotty, uncontrollable tears. Like I was hyperventilating in my boss's office. It was the most embarrassing thing I think I've lived through in recent memory. And not knowing what else to do and completely embarrassed by my actions, I decided to take a few days off to clear my head. And for the first time, probably ever in my life, I took time to reflect on what had brought me to that moment. And it wasn't what I thought it was. It was me. Without realizing it, I had chosen a career based on getting approval from my parents and not what would bring me joy and fulfillment. To protect myself, I further sabotaged my success by trying to control every situation and every outcome, which is why when my boss started to say no, I lost it. What I didn't realize is that my behaviors were sabotaging my overall success and happiness. And I was so hyper-focused on achieving someone else's definition of success that I wasn't giving myself permission to honor the things that brought me fulfillment. And I realized that if I wanted to be happier, I had to stop pleasing other people. I had to stop forcing specific outcomes, and I had to start living life on my terms. So fast forward to today, and not only have I redefined success and created a life and career that I love, I have created a signature formula that empowers my clients to do the same. And as you look at my success formula, the first thing that you'll probably notice is that I'm an outdoor enthusiast. But when you get past that, you'll notice that the first step is grounded in self-awareness. And if it took until this formula to realize that I'm an outdoor enthusiast as I'm wearing a hat with mountains on it, we'll catch you up. But my success formula is all about the trail that you have to take to reach success. And when you look at the first step, self-awareness, it is incredibly important because when it comes to achieving success, it is critical that you take the time to understand what is driving your behaviors and blocking your potential for success so that you can start to create a customized strategy and cultivate a resilient mindset that empowers you to achieve success on your terms. And what I know for sure is that if you are willing to challenge your truth and move past the behaviors and the beliefs that are no longer serving you, you will achieve greater levels of success than you ever realized were possible. Which brings me to the first item on our agenda: why we sabotage our success. Now, I'm not a brain scientist. Let me make that abundantly clear. So this is going to be a super high explanation of how our brain works. Basically, our brain's job is to keep us safe, and it is constantly learning. So if there is a situation, our brain uses the information available to it to respond. If that initial response is met with mental, emotional, or physical pain, it learns a new response. When that is then met with less or no pain, it files it away so that the next time you're met with a similar situation, it jumps straight to the learned response. So I'm going to give you two examples. There's something that we want near the stove. Our initial response is to put our hand on or near the stove, at which point we probably either burn ourselves or we get yelled at by somebody for touching what could have been a hot stove. We learn that this behavior is not acceptable, and we learn a new behavior, which is to not put our hand on or near a stove. So that the next time we face that situation and there's something near the stove, we go straight to the learned response, and our brain seals that away. Now let's look at how this works as it relates to our confidence and sharing ideas. Let's say we have a great idea. We act on it. For some reason, the idea doesn't work out the way we thought it would, or it's not received the way we thought it would. So we learn a new behavior, which might be that we avoid acting on our ideas until we receive validation that they're good ideas. When we realize that that works, our brain files it away. And then next time we have an idea, we jump straight to the learned response. We no longer trust our gut, and we look to others for validation of, is this a good idea and should I act on it? And the scary thing is that because our brain's job is meant to protect us, these learned behaviors work our way into our subconscious through neural pathways so that the brain can consciously continue to focus on new potential threats, which means unless you actively pay attention, you might be letting your learned responses dictate your life and sabotage your success without ever questioning if they're still helpful or if they're still needed. So let's move on to the second item of the agenda, which now that you kind of have an idea of how the brain works, let's start looking at some of these learned behaviors and sabotaging behaviors so that you can start to put an end to them. Now, just a quick call out. It is important to remember that as we go through this, self-sabotaging behaviors manifest differently in everybody. And for my perfectionists and my hyperachievers, I promise you that there is no right or wrong way to sabotage your success. It's just something subconsciously that we do until we consciously choose to stop it. Using my example from before, the reason that one person might be afraid to act on their ideas could be completely different than why someone else is hesitant to act on their ideas. It's why when you look back at my success formula, heightened self-awareness is so incredibly important to understand what is beneath your behaviors. And while I would love to dive into detail about how each and every one of you may be personally sabotaging your success and the root cause of what is underneath your behaviors, we don't have time for that tonight. Instead, I'm going to zoom out and help you self-assess your sabotaging behaviors by leveraging the research from the Positive Intelligence Framework, which explains that the 9 saboteurs that drive self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors are the avoider, the controller, the hyperachiever, the hyper-rational, hypervigilant, pleaser, stickler, restless, and victim. And from what I've discovered through my work with hundreds of clients, most people have 2 to 5 main saboteurs that rear their ugly head depending on the situation that they're in, their motivations, and their energetic style. And honestly, while these behaviors are sabotaging your success, they're also what have helped you successfully navigate life up until this point. These sabotaging behaviors are quite possibly your greatest strengths as well. So the trick is to first identify the behaviors and then determine, are they helping you or are they hurting you? Because when they're hurting you, you can start to create strategies that help you minimize the behaviors and maximize your potential for success. Now, grab your notebook and on a piece of paper, just write down the 9 saboteurs. Because in a minute, we're going to go through each and every one of these, and I'm going to have you start to kind of self-assess and self-rate yourself. And feel free to just do like a thumbs up when you're done. Gives me a chance to drink my seltzer. And for those of you who don't want to look up and down, I'll just read them off to you again quickly, which are their avoider, controller, hyperachiever, hyper-rational, hyper-vigilant, pleaser, stickler, restless, and victim. Thanks, Molly. I was muted. Just talking to myself over there. All right. All right. I'm seeing some thumbs up. So we are going to jump ahead. And for each one of these, I'm going to read through each one specifically, but I want you to rate yourself. I want you to rate yourself on how often you exhibit these behaviors, and you just keep it high level. We don't need to be perfectionists about this. I'm looking at you sticklers. We'll get there, but just rate yourself never, sometimes, or always when it comes to how often you exhibit these behaviors. And if you want, you can keep it super high level and look at all areas of your life. Or if it's helpful, you can focus on something specific like your career, your coursework at CSUSB, your relationships, etc. So let's look at the first one, the avoider. Someone who exhibits a lot of avoider behaviors might avoid conflict and doing hard things, procrastinate or create excuses as to why things are too difficult, or choose to do something unpleasant instead of telling somebody no. Or they might just prioritize something over something else because they're avoiding the something else. So go ahead and rate yourself. Do you never, sometimes, or always exhibit avoider tendencies? And just keep these in your notebook. At the end, we'll do a poll and kind of see where people rate in. Now let's look at the next one, the controller. Someone who exhibits controlling behaviors might do things such as forcing processes and ideas to drive solutions, not trusting others to do things correctly, taking the leadership work and doing the work. Think about your group projects as part of your MBA program. How many of you feel the need to take the lead of the group project and do the work and do all the things and make sure that it's submitted on time and do all, like, if that sounds like you, might want to circle always. If you're the person who just throws their hand back and is like, screw it, I'll let somebody else do the work, you're probably not a controller. Now let's look at the hyperachiever. Hyperachiever behaviors look like covering up your insecurities and shortcomings, being incredibly goal-oriented, and having incredibly high standards and expectations for yourself. Being a hyperachiever looks like having higher expectations for yourself than for others. So if there's something else that you would let somebody else slide with, but you're not willing to let yourself slide, likely a hyperachiever behavior. So go ahead and rate yourself, never, sometimes, or always. All right. I also know that there's a lot of words on this slide, and I'll give you an opportunity in a little bit to send me an email where I'll send you a PDF that kind of summarizes all of these, because I know that I'm going through these quickly. But the next one is hyper-rational behaviors look like constantly overthinking and having an active mind, preferring to sit back and watch the craziness and analyze things from a distance, and having the constant need for more information to help you make the right decision. Hypervigilant. I'm just going to start like flying through these. Someone who exhibits a lot of hypervigilant behaviors, they might manifest such as constantly being anxious with chronic doubts of self, others, the situation, constantly worried about what could go wrong, focusing on worst case scenario, always seeking reassurance and guidance in anything from procedures and rules to, you know, reassurance in what you wear and how you show up, or if you understood the assignment correctly, having a fear of being wrong and making mistakes, resulting in you maybe belittling your voice, belittling your ideas, not sharing your opinions, or using language like, this might be wrong, or feel free to correct me. So that typically manifests as hypervigilant behavior. So again, go ahead and rate yourself, never, sometimes, or always. Next is the pleaser. Pleaser behaviors often manifest as going out of your way to help, please, or flatter others, not expressing your needs, boundaries, expectations, or opinions out of fear of being too much or not being liked, and being worried that by asking for too much, you might drive other people away. On to the restless. Restless often manifests as fear of missing out, or FOMO, like the cool kids call it. So if you are always looking for the next exciting thing, you struggle having clear or concrete goals, you struggle finishing projects because you start one thing and then you're immediately on to the next one, you suffer from shiny object syndrome, you have commitment issues, all of this could manifest as restless behaviors. I definitely know that I have shiny object syndrome. It is something I have to keep in check. All right, there's only two more. The stickler or the perfectionist. Stickler behaviors often manifest as needing to be perfect, being very methodical, being very punctual, having certain routines that you can't break, being highly critical of yourself and others, especially if people aren't meeting the high bar that you're setting. Stickler behaviors also manifest as struggling to delegate work because you're worried that other people won't do it right. And finally, the victim, which typically manifests as longing for a different or easier life, believing that something might not be worth trying because things rarely work out, falling into the I don't know trap, or thinking that, every idea that you have isn't going to work. So why bother? So it's like, it could manifest as struggling to come up with new ideas, struggling to problem solve, because you just bring a lower energy to the situation. All right, so that was all 9. I know I went through them a little quickly, but I want you to take a look at your list and circle the saboteurs that you rated as always. When I first took this assessment, it was avoider, controller, and hyperachiever, which is why I circled them on this slide. Now, I want you to look at the ones that you circled and put a star next to the one that you think is sabotaging the most, or the one that sabotages you the most when you're stressed. If you have low stress levels and you think you have them under control, just focus on when you're stressed. But which of these behaviors gets in your way and sabotages you the most? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up when you, oh, we have a poll. We're going to do something fun. Can we launch that poll? Because, so in the poll that's about to come up on your screen, maybe, yeah, there we go. Go ahead and click on, is there a way to click on these? Oh yeah, oh, that's why I just see the results. New technology. Go ahead and click on the one that you circled or put a star next to. I used to have people drop it into the chat and it seemed very, like I was very vulnerable. So this poll feature is kind of fun because people can just see what other people are doing and it's a little bit more anonymous. But it looks like there's a lot of controllers in the group. A lot of people who exhibit restless behaviors, pleasers, hyperachievers, avoiders. Yeah, there's a mix of pretty much all of them. And like I said, like these are just the ones that you starred, but typically people have 2 to 5 that rear their ugly head. So we can go ahead and end this poll. It was just kind of a fun thing, just so people could see like, what else are people exhibiting? Like, am I alone in this? So I'm gonna just close it out of my view. Now, once we identify the hyperachiever, or it's getting late. I work East Coast hours, even though I live in Oregon. So my brain by this time of the day, I'm like, dunzo. Once we identify something like a self-sabotaging behavior that makes us uncomfortable, we quickly want to create a strategy that makes that discomfort go away. That's still your saboteur at play. So I'm not going to let you do that. Instead, I'm going to take us back to this success formula because I want you to live a little bit longer and build awareness around how the saboteur that you put a star next to is holding you back. So take 30 seconds. I'm clearly really big on like short time frames here. Take 30 seconds and write down at least one way that this saboteur may be holding you back from achieving greater levels of success. And if you're comfortable sharing, feel free to drop it in the chat. Overworking. Yeah. I'm going to guess, Rudy, that either controller, stickler, hyperachiever, maybe that's driving to overworking. Kirsten, reduce collaboration. Yeah, it's hard to sometimes trust other people and really lean into collaboration, especially when we're stressed and kind of in that learned behavior that if there's been a past experience where collaboration has failed us. So I'm guessing myself. Focused on what other people want and not what you want. So many ideas, and you spend your time thinking about them and not really doing anything to bring them to fruition. Not letting people help me. So it takes too long, loss of time. Yeah. As you start to see these things come into the chat box, you can start to see how some of these things that help us succeed are also holding us back. Yeah, Rudy, hyperachiever and stickler. I'm happy to see that you're starting to kind of tame that stickler perfectionist tendency. Now, there are a number of strategies. Whoop, there we go, slide. Number of strategies that can minimize the impact of these saboteurs. But the number one strategy that can help you start to minimize the impact of the saboteur that you put a star with, at least in the beginning, something that you can start doing tonight and this weekend, is you can start choosing to disassociate the behavior from your personality. How many of you, and you can just do like a show of hands or a me in the chat, how many of you have assumed these behaviors as your personality by saying things like, I'm a control freak, I'm a hyperachiever, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a this, I'm a that. Yeah, when we associate things with our personality, it makes it really difficult to change the behavior because in essence, we're trying to change our identity or change our personality. But by choosing to disassociate the behavior from your personality, you can look at it objectively and change the behavior because you realize it's no longer you are and it's no longer your identity. And the easiest way to do this is by naming it. And while naming the saboteur sounds crazy, it totally works. By naming your saboteurs, you can take the pressure off yourself. And it's an incredibly powerful mindset trick because, like I said, once you remove the behavior from identity, it empowers you to do something about it. So it goes from saying something like, I'm a control freak, to Bernard is trying to take control of the situation and I need to put a stop to this. So Bernard is actually a name that one of my clients came up with because it was a reminder that her saboteur was burning her energy. But I would love for you to go ahead right now and name the saboteur that you put a star next to. It can literally be anything. So go ahead, name your saboteur. And just for funsies, because the names are often really fun to look at, go ahead and drop them into the chat box. Chad, I like it. I'm gonna like all of them. Mr. Perfect. Socrates for hyper rational. That's a good one. Connie for controlling. Penny. Priscilla. I stole, like I said, I stole Bernard from a client. Mine's Larry. If there's any Larrys in the room, I apologize, but my saboteur is Larry. Don't know why. Just feels really good to yell at Larry sometimes. Selfie. So what would change for you, right? Like, let's start to make this real. What would change for you that instead of thinking like, I suck at making decisions, or I have commitment issues, or I'm afraid of making a mistake, you instead thought, Gertrude thinks that I'm making bad decisions, or Bart doesn't like making commitments, or Connie is afraid of making mistakes. All of a sudden, it's not so bad, because we can have a chat with Penny. We can have a chat with Priscilla. We can have a chat with Socrates, and we can tell them that it'll be okay. They don't have to stress out. They don't have to protect us, because we're strong and we've got this and we know how to navigate the situation. We can tell our saboteurs and those behaviors that we don't need their protection anymore, and that we're old enough to think for ourselves and navigate and learn new behaviors that actually serve us and allow us to unleash our potential for success, that allow us to take our time back, stop working so much, stop looking to others for affirmation or approval, stop worrying about if somebody likes us, and truly just authentically and confidently show up as our best selves, show up as our best leaders, show up as our best whatever you are in whatever role you take in your life. Now, we're going to get to Q&A in a second, but I am tired of talking. So if you're comfortable sharing, feel free to either drop it in the chat or raise your hand to come off mute. I would love to learn what you discovered as a part of this exercise.
I really liked how you you said name your saboteur and make it separate from yourself. That just is there's something really comforting about that. Like, oh, I can handle this. You know, it's not like this integral part of my body, like my arm or something. Like, it doesn't have to be associated with me so closely.
Right? It's like you're detaching it from your soul. Super powerful. Thanks, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
What about anybody else, now that Molly was kind enough to break the ice?
I don't mind sharing.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Brett.
So I thought it was really interesting to name our saboteur, because for a long time, for these last few months, I'm trying to change my life. I'm trying to change who I am, trying to be stronger, the better part of me, all of that. And so I've been trying to come up with a name for that person. How do I be more like that person? And I never really thought about naming the bad person that keeps kind of taking over my brain, and just like, can you just stop?
Yeah.
And just do something. And so now I can just yell at Socrates all I want. And I love that. I love that. because I've been trying to do the other direction, but this is the direction I think is the better start. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And what's so cool about that perception shift is the person you're trying to be, and like this transition that you're trying to step into is probably more aligned with your authentic self. So you can continue to look at that as you and your name while yelling
Right.
at Socrates for guessing everything.
Right.
That's awesome. Thank you
Thank
for sharing. Awesome. All right. So if anybody else wants,
I would like to share very quickly.
hi
Yeah,
Daniel.
I guess in analyzing, the 9 possibilities there, I guess the controversy for me was that I identified with at least 7 of them, but the one that I probably argued made me think, the most was how all the combination of all of them give me imposter syndrome, and that's what I contend. So yeah, it was definitely insightful challenge there. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up imposter syndrome, because that is something that many people struggle with. And I heard something really powerful a couple years ago about imposter syndrome. And we experience imposter syndrome when we are trying to be something that we're not, when we're trying to live up to this image of something that we're not, and this belief of something that we should be something other than we are. And the best way to quell imposter syndrome is to just become more confident in ourselves. And that comes with squashing these behaviors and squashing these thoughts that are holding us back. So I love that you kind of took that step back and you're like, wow, like all of these are manifesting as imposter syndrome. And understanding like what you can do to kind of minimize that doubt and minimize the behaviors that are thinking that you need to be something other than what you are, will be so powerful in the long run. So thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. All right. Whew. Thank you all for giving me a little bit of a break. The best part about coaching is I just have to ask questions and give people space to find their own answers. So when I come and do these workshops where I talk for like an hour straight, like my mouth hurts. Like I'm like, whoo, my cheeks are burning. So awesome. So if anybody has any questions, feel free, again, come off mute, drop them in the chat. Or if you're more comfortable doing so, I will also put my email up on the screen, and I can actually be fancy dancy and drop it into the chat box. Boop, boop, boop. Enter. I also make sound effects. So if you are more comfortable doing so, you can email me any questions. And like I mentioned before, if you want a PDF that explains these saboteurs in more detail, feel free to just send me an email with sabotage in the subject line. And honestly, probably on Monday or Tuesday of next week, I'll get ahead and send you that resource. But go ahead, email me. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand for questions. So for sake of time, if you have any, drop them in the chat. But for sake of time, I'm just going to kind of keep us moving. All right, drop my thing in the chat, blah, blah, blah. So, thanks, Molly. All right, so let's get to the last item on the agenda. And let's start to talk about where you personally need to focus your time and energy moving forward. Now let's go back to my model, because when ultimately it comes down to anything, this model can be applied. It's simple enough that you can take a step back and think like, what do I need to raise awareness for? What's my strategy? What mindset do I need? What does success look like? Now, in order for this model to work, you must have a clear definition of success. Most people have a vague idea of what success means to them. It's usually hinged on a certain career, the number of clients they have, their relationship status, the number in their retirement account, a certain title, whatever it may be. But until you take time to truly understand your unique position, your unique values, and your goals, that ambiguous definition of success will lead to uncertainty and ambiguity when it comes time to create a strategy or make progress toward your goals. So when you think about your life, your career, even where you are in this MBA program and the goals that you might have with that, do you have a clear definition of success? Go ahead and either put it in your notebook, drop it in the chat. Yes or no? Do you have a clear definition of success? Not yet. Now, oh, apparently I had a slide for that. Who knew? I'm seeing a lot of no's. Now, if you weren't, this is actually the second time I've been given the opportunity to chat with you all and chat with CSUSB. The first presentation I did is on your YouTube channel, and it's all about creating a definition of success. So I encourage you to go watch that recording. Molly, maybe you can email it to folks after the call. Go ahead and go look at that. Because if you answered no, this is the first place that I want you to start, or I encourage you to start. Because having a clear vision of what you'd like to achieve and why will make everything easier. You'll start to understand, like, if your goal is to summit a mountain, right? But you start raising awareness to why you can't swim. What's the point of that? What's the point of that? So getting really clear and like, what's your goal? Where are you going? So you can start raising awareness around the right things, the right behaviors that might be sabotaging you, the strengths that might be serving you. So again, go watch that recording. After that recording, if you have any questions, you can email me. Happy to continue the dialogue. Now, for the other elements of success, I'm going to ask you some questions. I probably jumped ahead too quickly there. I'm going to ask you some questions to help you understand where you need to focus your time and energy. And for each question, I encourage you to rate yourself by just writing down, yes, I've got this, or no, this needs some attention. So just in your notebook right now, write down awareness plus strategy, mindset, success. So just the 4 things. Success, you already answered yes or no. And then just give yourself some space next to the other ones to write yes or no. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Molly. You're super quick. All right, so let's look at the first step in the formula, awareness. Today, we started to raise awareness around the different ways that you might be sabotaging your success, which is a great start. Because if you're not aware of who you are, including your core values, your strengths, and your saboteurs, or what internal and external barriers you may be facing, then you won't be able to create a truly customized strategy that helps you achieve your goals. So when it comes to evaluating what you need in this area and where you need to spend your time and energy, I want you to ask yourself, am I fully aware of who I am, including my core values and my strengths? And am I fully aware of how I'm sabotaging my success and the external barriers that may be holding me back? So go ahead in your notebook, yes or no. Yes, I've got this nailed down, know exactly who I am. Or no, I might need to spend some time and attention here and energy. And once you're fully aware of who you are, once you can confidently look at that awareness step and write yes, you can start to create a customized strategy that empowers you to prioritize your values, leverage your strengths, and optimize your potential for success. A strategy that may be a little bit selfish, one that puts you in the driver's seat of your own life and your own career. So when it comes to creating a strategy, the questions you want to ask yourself are, Am I ready to optimize my potential for success and take control of my life? And 2, do I know how to create an effective strategy that will help me reach my goals? Yes or no? Could you use some support here? And when you're fully aware of who you are and you have that customized strategy, it's about having the resilience to trust yourself and the process so that you can navigate any situation, no matter what life throws your way. So when it comes to the mindset, I want you to ask yourself these 2 questions. Am I ready to release old beliefs about success and hold myself accountable to my definition of success? And 2, do I trust myself and my strategy enough to stay the course, even when things get hard or when the outcomes are unexpected? And whether you're thinking, I've got this, no problem, or oh crap, I have a long way to go, how we approach one thing is how we approach everything. And it may even be the way that you're sabotaging your success through false confidence or extreme self-doubt. And with that in mind, I would love to share one final story with you that shows the power of using this formula. When I first started working with Tammy, she was happy with her job. As the senior manager of logistics at a global distribution company, she was proud of how much she had accomplished over her 25-year career and how far she had worked her way up the corporate ladder. While she didn't have explicit career goals, she had recently read that women sabotage their success by putting their job over their career. And she wanted to understand if she was guilty of doing this and how to stop if she was. Spoiler alert, she was. So during one of our sessions, Tammy informed me that she was up for a promotion, but she had concerns over how the increased level of responsibility may impact her abilities to succeed on a special project. As we were discussing this, I asked her how her top saboteur, the hyperachiever, was manipulating her thought process. Tammy realized that her hyperachiever, who she called Sally, was so focused on excelling on this one special project that she didn't realize that her promotion would allow her to lead a team that focused on the special project while also allowing her to lead teams that excelled in other areas as well. This is why I wholeheartedly believe in the success formula in coaching, because with that increased awareness of what was holding Tammy back and with the proper support system, we were able to create a strategy that empowered her to achieve success with less worry, fear, and doubt. Now, I'm sure you're all super happy for Tammy, but how do we make this magic work for you? How do we help you start implementing what you learned here today? I want you to take a minute and write down one bite-sized action that you can take starting tonight or starting tomorrow that will help you start making progress towards your goals. I'm just going to awkwardly stalk the videos to see when people are done writing. Okay. Now, bite-sized is great, but I bet you want more. My question to you is, how do you plan on staying focused when things get hard? Part of the self-saboteur's game is to force you back into old habits and prevent forward momentum. which is why I recommend that you identify something very important: your support system. Who do you have in your corner who has created the kind of success and freedom that you desire? Someone who inspires you and is there to hold you accountable when you're having doubts. Now, some of you may already have that person, and that's great. I encourage you to reach out to them, share your goals, and create an accountability plan. And for those of you who don't, or those of you who are completely shaken by what we discussed today, I invite you to consider working with me. What I'm offering today is a complimentary exploration call to help you get really clear on what you need to do to unleash your full potential. This call is a great option if you've been feeling burnt out or you're frustrated about not reaching your goals. It's also a great option if you need support and accountability when it comes to reaching your goals and you're ready to invest in yourself so that you can make sure that all of this hard work pays off. If that sounds like you, on this 45-minute call, we will discuss your goals, any challenges that you might be facing, and a strategy that can help you get the results that you want. And if coaching is part of the solution, then we'll take time to evaluate which of my programs is right for you. I take this time because working together is an investment of time and money, and I want you to be 100% confident that I'm the right fit for you. And if I'm not, I am happy to make suggestions of who else you could work with to help you reach your goals. To get on my calendar, simply go to conchicoaching.com/I'm ready, and I'll drop that in the chat. It's a simple scheduling page so that you can just pick your date, time, and boom, you're done. It's one less thing to think about. And because I don't want your clarity and good intention to get lost in the shuffle, I'm going to give you an incentive to jump on my calendar. If you mention CSUSB when you schedule, I'll send you my 30-day mindset reset challenge. It's 3 daily habits that you can do over 30 days that can help you start to overcome these self-sabotaging behaviors. So some final thoughts. I am a trained and certified coach. I do this all the time. And I know one universal truth: choice is everything. This right here is a choice point. Being here today, you have had a glimpse into what life would look like if you stop sabotaging your success and holding yourself back from greatness. The choice is, what are you going to do about it? Now, you're all grown adults, and you have every right to leave the awareness right here at the door and go on with your life. Back to the same stress, overwhelm, and lack of direction as before. But I encourage you to make this a pivotal moment and make the choice to stop the self-sabotaging behaviors and start taking the steps required to reach your goals. Because even though you might be worried about falling, how beautiful would it be if you gave yourself permission to fly? Thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. Thank you, Molly, Ernie, and Kirsten for having me. And if anybody would like to keep in touch, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. So many good insights. Wow. Very, very much appreciate it. Such good information to connect with Jen, such a great way to connect with Jen. I have to say, I follow Jen on Instagram. She happens to also be my friend. But I follow her on Instagram, and she always is posting some great tips and some really insightful comments. And so it is definitely worth following her on LinkedIn or Instagram. And she has a great website as well if you want to explore that and see what's there. I think there are some additional resources available on her website as well. Thank you again, Jen.
Yep. And Rudy, I do see your question. I do not share my slides, but this was recorded, so you can always just go back and watch the YouTube video and, you know, screenshot whatever you want. But I personally, it's a boundary I set where I do not share out my, I don't share my slides, but go rewatch the recording and take notes on whatever you need.
Absolutely. I did post the link to the previous presentation you did for us. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you for today. This recording will be posted on the MBA YouTube channel in about a week, I would say. And so it'll be available there as well. So Rudy, you will definitely be able to see the presentation again and see those slides again on the YouTube channel. And I